For most people, technology makes things easier. For people with disabilities, however, technology makes things possible. In some cases, especially in the workplace, technology becomes the great equalizer and provides the person with a disability a level playing field on which to compete. Mary Pat Radabaugh. Mary Pat Radabaugh was my aunt, my mother's oldest sister, and has been a great influence in my life, especially in thinking about possibilities of technology, not necessarily kind of playing around what you can do with it. That was my dad. But Aunt Pat showed what one could do, thinking through the possibilities and making things happen. My Aunt Pat is in this picture on the right here. She's the woman standing up with a little floppy tie, and I have stories from the 80s about those floppy ties. I was a little kid at the time, of course. And she was involved with IBM's, at the time, IBM's push for adaptive technology and assistive technology. The center that's mentioned here in this article is from November 1987, IBM's National Support Center for Persons with Disabilities. I became aware of some of the assistive technology or adaptive technology or accessible technology possibilities of the time, which, yes, are very limited compared to now, in, I believe it was 1986, in which IBM donated a bunch of IBM PC juniors to a Kidney Foundation summer camp in the Atlanta area. And I got to go with Aunt Pat to the summer camp. And this was the concept. You can see in this picture here what typical business computers of the late 1980s looked like. They were bulky. These were the old desktops. It was great once people realized, we can move the CPU in the unit. Let's put it on the ground and just have the monitor up there. You can see how small the monitors were. It was very text-based, etc. In any case, the IBM had come up with a PC Junior, which was intended to be an accessible consumer technology product. It was not intended for business productivity, unlike their core business. This, if I remember correctly, this product did not do well. That said, and maybe they just had a bunch of excess PC Juniors that, hey, let's, take a tax break and donate them to the Kidney Foundation. That said, they were used, and this was the concept. A lot of the kids, not all of the kids, but a lot of the kids at the Kidney Foundation summer camps had to go to dialysis, and that would be 2 or 3 times a week. And for the most part, the tradition it was a very passive activity, as it were. You're in the dialysis center for many hours, and a lot of times they'd just be watching TV. The most interactive thing they'd ever get to do is they'd send in the clown. At least a clown or some other kind of performer in the room could interact with the kids, theoretically. That said, it's not a great feeling to be hooked up to tubes and not really being able to move or go anywhere for multiple hours. And you have to do this many times a week. So the concept was we bring in the PC Juniors. The kids could use them while they were on dialysis. I mean, then you could move your arms and stuff. You could type. I think they had mice. In any case, the main program that we were teaching the kids to use, and I say the kids, most of them were older than me. I was 12 years old coming to that camp. Most of the staff, of course, were college students. Okay, so I was there, and then various IBM employees would also come in. My dad came in for one of the sessions, but he was definitely not the person to teach somebody else new technology. I think he came in only once. I was there for all the sessions. I had a great time, and I learned so much. A lot of the staff members had other disabilities. I do remember at least one was blind. Some of the campers were blind. Some kidney damage and stuff, of course, can make you go blind. One of the staffers was deaf, and I learned that American Sign Language, which is a complete language, has a grammar very different from standard American English. So that was interesting to learn. And I learned some really, really inappropriate jokes. Yeah, anyway. Um, in any case, I was looking for this article. I think this is at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It is from November 5th, 1987. I'm just not sure the newspaper. So I went looking in a newspaper archive, and I found a bunch of articles, and a lot of them were from press releases, not going to lie, of IBM promoting this great thing. But it was a little bit before its time. To a certain extent, the technology wasn't quite there. I do want to show you, and it's not, yeah, I'll just read out this quote. "We've had a wonderful response," said Mrs. Radabaugh, a Cobb County resident. "It's good to know that so many people are interested. We'd like them to know that when it comes to technology that can help the disabled, we're really limited only by our own creativity." And that is one of the things my Aunt Pat did. She looked at what could they do. So I mentioned the staffer who was blind. They were trying out text to speech, so where the computer speaks back. Yes, it was that crappy computer voice. Toll-free number has been ringing. I mean, it's hard to understand. There's more like Siri and Alexa and all of that. It sounds a lot more natural than those original text to speech applications. But I do want to talk about some of the examples that are given in this article. A keyboard overlay allows those with cerebral palsy, whose hands may shake too much to use a regular keyboard, to type with accuracy. We say if you have the use of even just one eyebrow, you can use this sort of equipment, said Walter Dean, who demonstrates the machines at the center. Now, that was very expensive stuff, some of these things. They cites the example of a housewife stricken with Lou Gehrig's disease who can use only small muscles in her forehead. With the help of adaptive computer technology, she's teaching her children to cook, an activity she once thought impossible. And you can control. In my case, I can still use my voice even when I have a lot of pain. Well, that's not always true, but when I'm in the situation where I can't even speak, I have so much pain, I probably can't think well either. So there you go. And the one I liked, we heard about a 15-year-old deaf boy in a large Midwestern city, said my Aunt Pat. He was mainstreamed in a regular school, but he felt very isolated as he had no way to communicate with his peers. A telephone adaptation made it possible for him to talk with them at last. So he could type in the text. It would provide a voice. Now, of course, everybody texts each other. So if you're deaf, you've got text. And again, we have the voice recognition, the speech recognition systems. One of the things I tried yesterday when I was working on my prior video, but also training my own transcription app that I have for work, I realized, of course, YouTube automatically generates captions for the videos. They're okay. I actually went in and edited it. It's very obvious because there's punctuation in it, and the auto captions never puts in punctuation. And there are reasons for that, for obvious reasons. I mean, you don't want them trying to parse your grammar, but mainly we don't speak in complete sentences. The stuff I just read here probably came from a press release. People generally do not talk like that unless they've been prepped. You have your talking points and stuff like that. People can be trained to speak in complete sentences and do these sort of things, but it's not natural to conversation as if you go back and forth. A lot of times people re-speak in phrases. I just interrupted myself there. That's not something that would be good in written language, but works in spoken language. In any case, from my experience of editing the captions that were auto-generated, I'm going to go back to the prior ones as well. I'm learning how to use my transcription app to put in like parentheses, open paren, close paren, open quote, close quote. That's easy. And because I can't find this article in the archives, I'm going to transcribe this using my own voice and see how well that works. I've got to learn how to edit. You can select text and format it and that kind of thing. So this is really cool stuff. Both my Aunt Pat would be very happy to hear of how I'm using these transcription apps, though it's not IBM, of course. My dad would have thought it was really cool. And we have a great time. I just want to close with one thought here. I will likely come back with more stories about my dad, of course, and my Aunt Pat, because there's so much more to the story of my interactions with both of them and also my uncles and my grandfather, who all worked at IBM, but doing very different things. My dad was an engineer. I think his official title at one point, he was a systems engineer. He was a computer nerd. My Aunt Pat, I taught her how to use a computer as a kid. Like, I was 11 or 12 years old when I taught her. Yes, she asked my dad first. It did not go well. That's a story for another time, but I want to close with this one quote from this article from my Aunt Pat. I sometimes say that we're mostly temporarily able. Make it bigger so you can see it. We all face that potential through accidents or through surviving illnesses which would once have been fatal. Disabilities affect one family in 3 today, and as the population ages, this percentage will probably increase. So in my own case, it's pain. I can do these things, but it does get to be where I hurt myself more. This can happen to anybody. All of us, these adaptive technologies are really making it easier for all of us because, of course, you don't even need to have a disability to get the benefit of a lot of this technology, and that's the really good thing. Everybody can use it. And I'll be talking more about this as I get more and more used to my transcription software. I think I'm getting to the point where I could write a blog post, so even with links. So that'll be cool. See y'all.